Imagine the most horrifying thing happening to your child and you are helpless to prevent it. That was the grim reality for Leon Gary Plauché, an ordinary American man whose life was turned upside down in the early months of 1984. His son, Jody, was kidnapped by a man named Jeff Doucet. But this wasn't a simple case of kidnapping. Doucet was a child molester who had been sexually abusing Jody for at least a year prior to the kidnapping. This unspeakable act of violation was not only a crime against Jody, but also a brutal assault on the entire Plauché family. The emotional toll this incident took on the family is unimaginable. The Plauchés were thrown into a whirlpool of fear, anxiety, and despair. Their home, once filled with the laughter and joy of a young boy, was now echoing with silence and uncertainty. Every passing second, every ticking minute was a torturous reminder of their missing son. Their desperation led to an exhaustive search for Jody. Days turned into weeks and weeks into a month. The Plauché family lived in a state of agonizing suspense, their hearts aching for their son's return, their minds tormented by the unthinkable atrocities he was enduring. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Jody was found. He was thousands of miles away from home in the state of California. But the relief of finding Jody was tainted by the harrowing details of his ordeal. The nightmare was far from over. But the story doesn't end with Jody's rescue. The real drama was yet to unfold. The law had caught up with Doucet, but for Plauché, justice was far from served. The wheels of justice were beginning to turn, but they were grinding far too slowly for a father whose child had been irreparably harmed. In the Golden State of California, thousands of miles away from Louisiana, the authorities had found and apprehended Jeff Doucet. The man who had kidnapped and violated Jody Plauché was now in custody, but the ordeal was far from over. The news of Doucet's arrest brought a grim satisfaction, yet it was tempered by a gnawing anxiety. The upcoming trial loomed large, casting a shadow over the Plauché family. As Doucet was extradited back to Louisiana, the tension was palpable. The process was fraught with anticipation, a ticking time bomb of emotions. The journey back to Louisiana was not just a physical one, but a journey towards the impending trial that held so much at stake. The public watched, breath held in collective anticipation, as the stage was set for a trial that would captivate and divide the nation. While the wheels of justice were slowly turning, for Gary Plauché, they were not turning fast enough. The man who had harmed his son was returning, not to face a father's wrath, but to stand in a court of law. The anticipation of Doucet's trial was a double-edged sword. On one hand, it promised the possibility of justice. On the other, it was a grim reminder of the horrors that his son had endured. But as the days turned into weeks, something was simmering beneath the surface. A father's heartache was morphing into a father's wrath. The pain, the hurt, the anger, it was all brewing into a silent storm. The anticipation was building, the tension reaching a fever pitch. As the day of the trial drew closer, one thing became clear: this was not just about a trial, this was about a father's quest for justice. As Doucet was brought back to Louisiana, a father's wrath was silently brewing. No one could have guessed the storm that was about to hit, a storm that would shock the nation and forever change the course of justice. On March 16, 1984, an airport became the stage for a shocking act of retribution. In the early hours of that fateful day, Leon Gary Plauché lay in wait at Baton Rouge Metropolitan Airport. His son's abuser, Jeff Doucet, was due to arrive from California, escorted by law enforcement to face charges for his monstrous acts. Plauché, driven by a potent mix of rage and desperation, had a singular mission: to enact justice for his son in the most direct way he knew. The tension mounted as the minutes ticked by. The air was thick with anticipation, the atmosphere charged with an undercurrent of impending chaos. And then, there he was, Jeff Doucet, the man who had violated the innocence of a child, now under the protective wing of the law enforcement officers escorting him. Without a moment's hesitation, Plauché made his move. With a swift stride and a resounding bang, he shot Doucet at point-blank range. The bustling airport, once filled with the humdrum of everyday life, was thrown into a state of shock and confusion. The echoes of the gunshot reverberated through the terminal, imprinting a chilling memory into the minds of all present. As Plauché was swiftly apprehended, Doucet lay motionless, the life draining out of him. The man who had terrorized a young boy and his family was now the one struck down, his fate sealed by the very father of the child he had harmed. Plauché would succumb to his injuries the very next day, his life ending as abruptly as the gunshot that had sealed his fate. In the blink of an eye, the victim had become the perpetrator. Plauché's act of vengeance had the nation divided. Was he a hero or a villain? The trial that ensued was as riveting as the events that led to it. Gary Plauché stood before the court, his future hanging in the balance. His plea? No contest to manslaughter, a plea that acknowledged the act without admitting guilt. The cornerstone of Plauché's defense was the psychological torment he had undergone, the unbearable pain of knowing his son's abuser was free and walking the same earth as his innocent child. Psychological reports played an instrumental role in his defense. They painted a picture of a man pushed to the brink, temporarily psychotic due to the abuse inflicted on his son. The verdict echoed through the courtroom, reverberating through the hearts of all present. Plauché received a 7-year suspended sentence with 5 years probation and 300 hours of community service. He would not serve any prison time. The public's reaction to the verdict was a cacophony of differing opinions. Some saw it as a father's righteous fury, a desperate act of protection. They hailed Plauché a hero, a symbol of parental love that knew no bounds. Others viewed the lenient sentence as a dangerous precedent, a tacit approval of vigilante justice. They saw Plauché as a villain, a man who took the law into his own hands. As the dust settled on the trial, the debate raged on. The question remained, was the sentence a fitting one? Did it serve justice, or did it merely fuel the flames of an already heated discussion on the limits of retribution? In the court of law, Plauché was a free man, but was justice truly served? The echoes of that gunshot reverberated far beyond the walls of that airport. In the wake of the shocking case, public debate ignited like a spark in dry tinder. The question on everyone's lips was simple yet complex. Could a man be justified in taking the law into his own hands? Was Gary Plauché a hero or a vigilante? The court of public opinion was divided. Some saw him as a father pushed to the brink, while others viewed his actions as a dangerous precedent. Meanwhile, the impact on Plauché's life was profound. Living under the shadow of such a high-profile act, he became a figure of intrigue, his name forever linked with the dramatic events of that fateful day. Despite the tumult, Plauché remained steadfast, serving his sentence of 5 years probation and 300 hours of community service with quiet resilience. The media was captivated by the story, the dramatic footage of the shooting playing out on television screens across the nation. Documentaries were produced dissecting the incident from every angle. Each retelling served as a stark reminder of the thin line between justice and vengeance, and the lengths a father would go to protect his child. The case left an indelible mark on Plauché's family, especially his son, Jody. The trauma of the abuse, the kidnapping, and the subsequent shooting was a heavy burden for a young boy to bear. The aftermath of the case was a difficult period, a time of healing and recovery. As for Plauché, he lived out his remaining years in relative obscurity, the echoes of that gunshot gradually fading into the annals of history. Yet his story continued to resonate, a chilling tale of a father's rage and the quest for justice. Gary Plauché passed away in 2014, but the memory of that fateful day at the airport continues to haunt us. It's a chilling reminder of how far a parent can go to protect their child.